of the last times that I felt like something wasn't fair? Like really not fair. It was last Christmas when the nursery staff looking after my kids quite frankly looked exhausted from providing Christmas cheer to kids that were dropped off and high on Advent chocolate. I initially felt guilty that I'd become one of those mums, bribing my kids to get into the car with chocolate and leaving someone to deal with the aftermath. But actually, very quickly, it made me question how unfair it was that they as frontline workers didn't have the same work opportunities as me. They were there, working morning, noon and night. They couldn't flex their days to attend a doctor's appointment. They couldn't clock off a little early to go and do some Christmas shopping. They couldn't even go in a little late the day after their Christmas party. Quite simply, last year's festive season made me realise how hindered people's choices were working at a physical location. The nursery staff had simply no opportunity to have flexibility unless they took annual leave. And of course, as I thought more about it, it wasn't just the nursery staff. It was the delivery driver that dropped off my parcel at 1 a.m. Yes, 1 a.m. It was a paediatric doctor that rushed off after the nativity play. It was the police person that came to investigate a break-in on my road. All of these people were simply not afforded the same work choices as me, and it felt really, really unfair. In my role, I've spent the last 6 months reading about how the workplace has changed for the better. Employers are rising to the challenges of hybrid working and reaping the benefits of a post-pandemic world. Employees have had choices. They've had time to self-reflect and find roles that are closer to home, that allow them more flexibility and a better work-life balance. Yet the front line have still been left behind. Yes, of course, employers are working hard on their diversity and inclusion strategies, ensuring that every employee in the workplace feels seen, heard and respected. Lucky for me, I've experienced these benefits firsthand. And yet there is still this massive gap between me as an office worker and all these people who kept our economies turning. They simply do not have the same opportunity to reap the benefits of a post-pandemic world. My newsfeed is no longer full of stories of heroes. Instead of workforces forced into striking just to get their voices heard. We were quick to adapt, but we were also quick to forget. For a short while, the frontline were our heroes. We valued them and we thanked them. But soon, when things went back to normal, the capes were ripped off. They were back to nurses, delivery drivers, teachers. And of course, the discontentment set back in as they became invisible again. And my word, aren't we beginning to see the repercussions of it? Not only are we experiencing the biggest financial crisis that we've seen in the last 2 decades, the world has changed for everyone except the front line. Yes, the policies, the communications, the recruitment, the talent management, they all serve to move businesses forward in the right direction. But so often they're missing the mark with these huge pools of people. Fairness, or indeed the perception of unfairness, creates strong emotional reactions in the workforce. Ambivalence, anger, discontentment, none of these are things that employers want to see in their workforce. So how can the workplace be made fairer for the front line? What exactly can employers do to improve the employee experience? Well, firstly, employers could be looking at choices. Here in the UK, over half of our workforce are frontline, yet only 3% have the opportunity to have flexibility in their role. It goes without saying that flexibility is a very personal thing. A Gen Z graduate is going to want something completely different to a millennial parent. But on the most part, the need to work in a physical location is not going to change anytime soon. So what other choices can employers offer the front line? How about providing choices around when employees work? This could be flexible start times, part-time working, compressed weeks. Perhaps employees could have the opportunity to input into the rota or easily swap shifts. These should not be perks. We have a long, long way to go before this becomes the norm. But there are other choices too. Perhaps some employees would like choices and benefits or want more autonomy in their role. Maybe they want to decide how they reach their targets. Others might crave variety and want to upskill and have the opportunity to work across multiple roles. And it's proven that choice can work. Many businesses who have trialled flexible working for the front line have seen huge uplifts in engagement and productivity. And it really does work. There's an airport in Melbourne where anyone from a tank driver to a refueler are upskilled and able to multitask to take on different roles at any given time. Needless to say, the benefits for Melbourne have been considerable. They've seen a huge uplift in productivity and engagement. Another company, Kawasaki, have introduced a parent shift. It might be the shortest shift in terms of hours, but hands down, it's become their most productive shift. So what does this tell you? There are relatively small things that employers can do to increase the work-life balance of the frontline. Of employers that offer frontline flexibility in Scotland, 35% report that they've seen a reduction in sickness and absence. Of course, there are many barriers in place, but with the right mindset, some creativity and some investment, offering flexibility to the frontline is almost always possible. The key is to look at what flexibility can be offered. So if we know these changes can't be done overnight, what small changes can be done right now to impact the frontline workforce? How can we make them feel seen and heard again? It's simple. Communicate. It sounds straightforward enough, but too often companies completely miss the mark with reaching their frontline. Even small changes can make a big difference. Think about it. Are important communications to the frontline signposted? Are times of day considered? We know that they have limited screen time, so how can we make it easy for them? Are communications written in an accessible way that makes it easy for them to get the message that they need to know? I've seen countless induction documents that refer to canteen and lunch options that are only relevant to daytime staff. Do shift workers who start at 3 p.m. or 11 p.m. even care about lunch? It's about the nuances of the language. Think about the corporate colleagues that refer to close of business. In the operations department that run 24/7, when does business close for them? On the surface, these may seem small and insignificant, but they only serve to widen the gap between operationals and corporate staff. Thinking further about communications, perhaps employees have started their journey to frontline flexibility, but employees don't even know it yet. How will they know their employer is even open to a conversation about flexibility in their role? Do they even know what options are available to them? And how can employers bring employees on the journey with them? How can they be actively encouraged to make suggestions? Managers and leaders don't have to have all the answers, and employees are generally sensible with their suggestions. Of course, it's well documented that the front line can be harder to reach, but this shouldn't stop employers from actively seeking out their opinions. Just because they're not desk-based doesn't mean that they don't have a valid opinion to provide. With all good communications comes transparency. Taking employees on the journey will almost certainly help them feel visible and valued again. With communications, the process is almost as important as the outcome. Companies that are moving forward to create worker-first cultures will naturally have better retention rates. Businesses that are open to conversations around flexibility will open themselves up to a whole new talent pool. Employees will see considerable social and mental benefits, ultimately leading to better productivity. They'll be less inclined to take unplanned absences and leave. It really is a win-win situation for everyone. So if only businesses could break traditional mindsets and see frontline flexibility as an opportunity and not a barrier, and they might just start to see better productivity, more diversity and better growth. The workplace would feel a lot fairer and more equitable for everyone.